Today we are here to take the analysis of the Sociology paper 1, and the discussion will follow soon, but largely what should be the approach for paper 1 and how it is different from last year, and what is the level of preparedness and the uses of examples are there which we will deliberate upon and divulge upon. So, you see that understanding and finding the source is important before attempting the paper or even trying to analyze it. So, in this context, we will try to focus upon and understand the paper this year. So, now largely this has been the distribution of paper pattern this year, though thinker in itself remains an important point, but over the period of time its dependency has decreased. So, this year there was directly 90 marks questions from thinker. Now, unit 110 marks directly, and most importantly you see that most of the questions focused upon the research methods and the various strand of sociology and sociology as a science. This was the other case. Third, the stratification part, dynamics, that part was 50 mark question, and questions were relatively direct, but yet some amount of hidden fact or analysis was needed. More importantly, dynamic and application part 120. These are the larger patterns. In section 2, if you will see section B, if you will realize, nearly every of the question focused upon converging the facts of Indian society with that of the larger application in the sociology. So, you have to converge paper 1 and paper 2 both while answering the question. Now, so this has been the analysis in the overall application of the paper 1, that the role of knowledge collection, that the mad rush behind the materials, that we are supposed to remember this material, remember that materials, we have to have the names of so many thinkers, and that part was and can be seen with the limited scope. Rather, the focus was on that how you are going to use the concepts that you have learned in paper 1 in paper 2. So, there is a convergence in paper 2 and paper 1, and you have to use every knowledge and everything learned in paper 1 vis-a-vis application in paper 2. That was the first part of the analysis. Now, second part is that importance of content, and is that how much content do you have on particular topic, and what is the nature of the content. That will be more clear when we will try to analyze the paper first of all. See, reading between the lines is an important part which can be seen in this context, and as far as paper is concerned, it is imperative that we should look at the paper first of all. See, delimit the scope of sociology in relation to other social science. It is not relation per se, rather it is finding the scope that where sociology is different from other social science, and that too in 10 markers. So, you have to maintain a specific amount of control over all your understanding in this question, that how you are differentiating it with other aspect of the social science. Second, how does a researcher achieve objective in interpretive research? You see that the nature, we all understand that interpretive research was there, but you see that the question is very specific. So, it is not very simple in that context you have to have a very good and brief idea about, it is not about that how much you have mugged, rather it is how much you have understood is what is making the difference. The third question, the difference between data and information in social sciences is subtle. Specifically, it is a question related with the perspective, but you have to read it. You have to understand that you have to write it from the perspective. You have to clearly show the relationship between data, information and knowledge, and how change in information and perspective changes the conclusions. You have to give good examples from same theory, that how there is a difference between book view, field view, participative view, non-participative view, and what perspective and what research method that you are taking and choosing, which can alter your information, even though the data is subtle. So, data, with the same data, interpretation and information may vary depending upon that which point of view you are choosing from. So, that is the third part. Durkheim argued that society is more than the sum of individual acts. Straightforward question, because they have been asking question from other facts, so natural that this question will come. So, how do sociologists construct gender in their analysis on social inequality? You see that the first topic is 5 questions are over. How many questions are direct? No idea. The thing is that you see only 1 and 2 questions are rather direct question, but most of the question you have to have the control over the data. You have to find the examples from research method to answer this question in a justified and brief way, but that won't come if you will just mug up the facts, and that part will be more visible and clear in the section 2. But even in the section 1, the importance is largely on applications of the concepts that you have learned rather than that how much you have remembered. Now, the question was supposed to come, and every year there will be a question. So, as such there is no transformation, but in what way you can answer this question depends. For example, explain the different types of what aspect of enlightenment do you think paved way for the emergence of sociology? See, the focus is not on emergence of the sociology, rather on the aspect of enlightenment. And in this context, it is important to understand that what aspect of enlightenment can be related with the emergence of sociology. I tried to draw a brief diagram in this question particularly. You see, this is the part. I believe that it is visible to everyone. If not, yes. Enlightenment, new source of authority, particularly grounded in human capacities, balance between skepticism and confidence. Third, attitude of an educated minority. Fourth, self-interest, happiness and human nature. Fifth, confidence, optimism. Sixth, universal vision. So, these are the aspects, largely the aspects of enlightenment. And now your merit lies in that how you are identifying the scope of emergence. Largely these are the conditions of both hope and despair. These are the conditions of both progressiveness and conservativeness. So then in this context you have to show that how the methods, the empiricism, the rationalism, the humanism and the idealism contributed to the emergence of sociology. You have to identify the different aspects of enlightenment, and these were the very aspects of the enlightenment, and these were the schools based on which sociology emerged in Europe. And you see, balance of skepticism and confidence. Condorcet, though he was for the progress, but he was skeptic about it. Universal vision, new source of authority particularly grounded in human capacity, democratic modernization, attitude of an educated minority, the role of intellectual thinker, self-interest, happiness and the nature. We have various schools about it. Humanism was one of the schools. The contention of the Durkheim is one another schools. Confidence and optimism that the society will progress and there will be a better life, citizen to subject, modernization at the social level, at the family level. So these were the aspects of enlightenment where you will be relating it to the emergence of sociology with views of some of the thinkers. But you see that there has to be a control over the content. Just writing that, okay, these were the conditions and which led to the emergence. And if we try to analyze it, there was always a conflict between the progressive and the conservative thinker. So you have to show that the means were adopted from the enlightenment and the goals, even though enlightenment goals were there for the skepticism or the conservative thinkers, Boutroux, Louis de Bernard and such other thinkers are there. So in this context, you understood that how importance the understanding of the question, the theory of the question plays, and the control over the content, not that we are reading from this book and that book, the control over the quality content and such other thing is important in this context. So based on this, if we say that the importance of content is there, that how briefly you are able to present your content in the answer writing, 1, 2, that this part we will take separately. And see, even in this case, social stratification is claimed to contribute the maintenance of social order and stability in society, critically assess. The idea is what? The idea is not to write about the social stratification, you don't have to write about the various schools. The idea is very simple, that you have to write about the functionalism and you have to criticize it with the conflict theorist, that it is not contributing. It's a straightforward question from the different schools of theory of the schools. Similarly, explain the different types of non-probability sampling techniques and bring out the condition of their uses. Same problem. We try to remember everything. We try to remember, yes, that there is a purposive sampling method, there is snowball sampling method, there is a quota sampling method, there is a theoretical sampling method, there is an accidental sampling method. So we know that there are 6 to 7 sampling methods, 5 to 6 sampling methods, but when to use it? Bring out the conditions of their uses with the appropriate examples. So either these examples can be thought upon, or you do have these examples. So rather it is the thinking which will fetch you more marks. That if we are identifying the purposive sample, then probably we can go on to look on the relationships that are founded in any of the library at any of the coaching institutions, or the Rajinder or any of the coaching institutions or the institutions. So that will give you a sample. And yes, if you are able to see, if you will be able to understand the concept, then you will be able to devise the theory. You will be able to devise the knowledge and apply it. That is more important rather than that how many name of the thinkers you are learning upon. Citation is good, but excessive, the focus should not be only upon the citation. And third question, stratification. Discuss social mobility in open and closed system of stratification. It is a very straightforward question. So you can try to identify the patterns of the social mobility in both way, vertical, horizontal, intra-generational, intergenerational, and you can comment upon it. But again, you have so many things to write. So in what way you will be able to present it, that is more important than understanding than writing and mugging, or just remembering the facts and writing all the things. So what are the shortfalls of the positivist philosophy that gave rise to the non-positive methods of the understanding social reality? It is one of the straightforward question, and I told you this section 1 is relatively easier or relatively straightforward when we compare it with the section 2. So critically examine how Durkheim and Merton explicate enemy. Oh, we remember it. We remember how that Durkheim and Merton, but what is the relationship between such enemy? That is the important part. That what is the relation that when we move from mechanical solidarity to organic solidarity, they will be an enemy. Similarly, when we move between different reference group, there are chances of the enemy. So these are the part that you have to understand, and how their enemy is different from other forms of enemy. Okay, so suggest measures to minimize the influence of the researchers in the process of collecting data through focus group. See, this was another straightforward question, but again, the focus that how briefly, how succinctly and precisely the content is more important, and how you present it, because measures to minimize the influence of researchers in the process of connecting data from the focus group. And it is very specific question, straightforward but specific. You need to have the specific knowledge for understanding this or writing this question. Now, what characterizes degradation of work in capitalistic society according to Marx? This was one of the straightforward question. Another of the straightforward question. How do you characterize degradation of work in the capitalistic society according to Marx? So we can go and writing about thingification, alienation, distinction between the labor values, and inherent contradictions of the inherent contradiction of the capitalism. So detachment and such other things can be written, but what are the changes that is being witnessed now? We can include some element of Derendorf while writing these answers. Okay, so these are the things which we need to focus upon. See, this is not a question answer session, that I will be not telling you the answers, that how to approach the question. That we will take in a separate class, but right now the focus is upon analysis, that how it is different from last year, previous year. Social stratification is claimed to contribute the maintenance of social order and stability, which we have already discussed, that how you have to compare two different schools while analyzing the question. The schools of functionalism vis-a-vis social stratification and the school of conflict theorist. What is reliability? Explain the different tests available to social science researcher to to stabilize reliability. Again the same part. You see, the section 1 is completely filled with the research method. Now here comes the important part. Write short answers, critically examine the relevance of Durkheim view on religion in contemporary society. So the things that along with the things like new religion, civil religion, okay, decreasing role of religion, everything will come under this banner. And what is the role of inter and intra-religion relations? 10-marker thinker that you have to analyze. Various perspectives, straightforward. It can be written easily. Explain now here comes the implication of feminization of work in developing society. You see how they are using most of the paper 2 in paper 1. So where is the distinction between paper 2 and feminization of work in the developing society? Bargaining power, negotiations, shift, double jeopardy. There are so many things to be wrote upon, and you can write many, attempt it in many way, but the question remains, the part is that you see that this is not a direct question. Further, write a global trends of secularization. That is changing nature of the secularization. That how the secularization is differing from one view to other view. So, proliferation of the religion, cult, rise of the cults, and cult based on the interest, some of the six groups, all the things will come. Further, trace the trajectory of developmental perspective on social change. Though it is a straightforward question, but you see the content that you have and how you will be adjusting those content in 10 marks. That is more important point. Further, it is more about understanding developmental perspectives. Are you going to write modernization theory, world system theory, developmental and dependency theory, because they are the part of the social change also? And how you will be justifying it? Because trajectory, that how it is following and how it is not following is the mainline question. So you have to write everything in 10 marks. Again, according to the Mead, the idea of self develops when the individual becomes self-conscious. Behavior radicalism. Though Mead was not asked in the last 2 years, but it was definite that he will come. And when we develop the Mead, then see, Mead is one of the thinkers which is hard to understand. But he is saying that idea of self develops when the individual becomes self-conscious. So you see that again it is trying to check on the concept. It is trying to check on, though it is a very straightforward question, and you do have, I believe that most of the students are having material on it, but again it remains a very straightforward question. Second, analyze the nature of transition from ideology to identity politics in India. Ideology to identity politics, that you have to show that in different aspects also. Probably even in farmers movement there was an ideology, even in women's movement there was an ideology. If we talk about the farmers movement, there was the ideology that state will be supporting us and that our interest and interest, that of our interest is aligning. After that it changed during the Green Revolution, when the ideology was against that of capitalism and it was against the state interest. And now ideology based interest, one common ground, one global consensus was giving way for the local norms, and that shaped the identity politics. That is shaping the overall discourse on the populism, because it is understood the moment when the state will, so the middle class will decrease or weaken, identity policy will creep in and populism will increase. So you see that it is more about that how you are applying the questions rather than, and your direct material is not available. So again you have to think it. The change from last year pattern is that in last 2 years paper was quite straightforward. Paper was focusing upon that how much you have learnt and how much you have remembered. Now this year there is a pattern, that pattern focuses upon that how you are arranging and sequencing the different fact in a very coherent and concise way. Similarly, how do great and little tradition coexist in contemporary Indian society? Yogendra Singh, the great tradition of constitution is still existing with the little tradition of Khap Panchayat. There is the element of both universalization as well as the parochialization. So you see that you have to use, even if you try to analyze it from the paper 1 also, it is also talking about the social change. Not linear though. So further, Critically analyze Parsons' view on society as a social system. See, basically, I'm not going into the details that how to answer and how to structure the question, but largely it is a question on, you see that how it is different from the last year. Though this question was same and it was supposed to come, because from last year there are only 2 or 3 things in which asking social system was not asked. So in this case, because last question on the social system was in 2018. So this was the question which will be there. Discuss how environmentalism can be explained with new social movement approach. 2 theories that where we have to use the current example and at the same time we have to analyze the new social movement approach in the Indian context. So now discuss environmentalism, that how it is not present, specific, geospatiality, time bound, the common coherence ideology, and we have to link it with a different aspect of what is happening in India at this point of time. So you see that there is a change in the overall applicative aspect. It is not that you have learned, remembered everything about Harlambos and you try to answer the question based on that. It is how you are structuring and answering those questions, and even the specific contents. Like as I told you, even in the cases of probabilistic sampling methods, there are so many things to be considered. Okay, that where to use it, where to apply it is more important than how you are remembering it. Sociology is, let's just see about the last pages. Illustrate with an example of the role of pressure group in the formulation of the social policy. Application, pressure group, and the functioning of the pressure group. As far as I have checked the manuscripts, this is the part where people do lack. Though the examples, but the mechanism is not written that clearly. Are traditional institutions getting weakened as an agent of social change in the contemporary society? Question based on continuity and change, and you see that every question is related with the paper too. Sociologists argue for democratization of science and technology for inclusive development. This question was supposed to come because right now what we are witnessing and current oriented witnessing is that there is an equality in the case of technology, and that inequality is shaping more inequality, is increasing more inequality. So you see, the paper is completely current affair based. Paper is completely framed in such a way that your knowledge of the paper 1 as well as the paper 2 are linked and to be understood. Patriarchy and social development. You have to create and show that what was the different condition in South India, North India, and the mechanization, green revolution, everything can be written in that way, that pretext. Analyze the transition from ideology to application. So you see that largely the paper is very dynamic and it demands a kind of succinct information from you. Third, the to the point answer writing. To the point, because if we try to write any questions, then there are so many things which can be written in any of the paper. But the art lies in that how you are attempting the paper with brief points. And even after discussing some of the papers with some of my students, I found that there are significant parts on content are also lacking in this case, and our focus is generally creating or framing questions which are of the application based pattern. Some of the students might find it difficult, but as it is the reality, the UPSC question paper is never too static, and if you want to check your relevance, then it is very important that you should apply it, that you should try to write more contemporary and more analytical question as possible. And this is the way how you will improve. And you will understand what I am trying to say when we will take the discussion on the complete discussion on the paper 1 and paper 2. Though paper 2 was a bit static in nature, it was straightforward as compared to paper 1. But you will see that there will be a discussion session of complete discussion session of both paper 1 and paper 2, and you will analyze that how to the point brief answer writing is possible, and it depends with the content that you already have. It is more about the concept. We try to focus upon the conceptual clarity of any of the topic. I'm open to question. If anybody do have any question, then they can ask me. I believe that no one have any questions. So you will be intimated about you will be given information about the discussion, the day of the discussion, and I believe that it will be before 15th. And on that day we will be taking a complete class of both paper 1 and paper 2, so that more and further clarity will come on how to approach the paper. On that note, the analysis underlines this analysis try to underline the part that try to work as much as possible on the concepts, and try to write as many answers you can, because that will give you the clarity of where to present and what to present. And third, try to be very brief and to the point in your answer writing. Okay. So you will be given the information, and when we will have a session, I believe that hope you all will be present there, and so that a better understanding and overall analysis of the paper can be done. On that pretext, I will end up the discussion. Thanks a lot.